Good morning. Welcome to the Ryan Crossley Show, an hour where we look at what's going on in this world, try and make some sense of it, and hopefully we can make a difference. My name is Ryan Crossley. It's good to have you one more time, all our faithful listeners, and I hope that something that we say today can spark conversation, interest, or a little bit of attitude. I don't know. But it's amazing the things that are going on in our world, very important. And we've got to be aware of it. So let's go. We've got an hour to talk about things and see what we can do. So one more time, welcome to the Ryan Crossley Show. This is Ryan Crossley. Excited to be with you. Excited to talk about the political atmosphere in our world, and also as Christians, what we need to do or how we need to maybe even react in the moment. So with that said, let's get to one of the main things that's going on. And this is a very, very scary thing to me. If we wanted to do a study, you ready for this? If we wanted to do a study of the destruction of powerful nations, one of the things that we would see very clearly is the economic dominoes that fall and place a country in a position that is practically irreconcilable. It's a non-recovery. And we are very, very, very quickly headed that way. Let me just tell you what my thought process is this morning, and it is very concerning. I know that everybody is so concerned with all the wokeism, all of the social issues that are taking place. All of that is in many, many ways a ruse, a smokescreen for something much more dangerous that is taking place. And that is, we are spending ourselves into oblivion to the point where we need to stop. It is absolutely insanely ridiculous what this country is doing. If you would just pause for a moment and think that it took us practically 200 years, a little over 200 years, to go from a zero national debt to about $3 trillion of a debt. And now we're looking at $30 trillion. The problem with this is we only bring in, if I'm not mistaken, normally it's around 4 trillion plus. And we spend 7 trillion plus. That's not counting all of these special packages like the ones that have been passed, well, even pre-COVID. Let's go back to the housing crisis that occurred in 08, 11, all of that. That's when this maniacal spending started. And one of the things that frustrated me, do you remember having a house? If you owned a house back, let's see, I think ours was 2011 when we lost our house. If you owned a house back then, did you call the bank? Did you call the bank trying to get any help? If you did, you probably had an experience very much like the one I did. And I'm just going to take one moment to thank everybody that's connected to the show. A todos los que hablan español, le pido disculpa. este show es el inglés, pero siga conectado igual. All those that speak Spanish, my political show in Spanish is Tuesday mornings. But I owned a home. Okay, let me tell you just a backstory. My wife and I moved to South Florida, December of 2004. Blessed enough to be able to buy a small townhouse. My wife's grandmother had gifted her some money, and we were able to use that as a down payment. But to us happened what happened to so many. In just a few years, we were severely upside down because of the crash of the housing market and the chaos that ensued. But here was the very frustrating thing. The very frustrating thing was we continued, obviously, being responsible, paying our mortgage. It was an interest-only mortgage. That was very popular back then. You only paid on the interest. It made your monthly payments lower, and for a young couple trying to make it in this world, that was a very attractive thing. I look back now and see the downfalls of it, but that's what it was. We had an interest-only mortgage, and after 7 years, the interest, it was adjustable. It was a 7-year ARM mortgage is what it was. And so I started calling. Here's the crazy thing. I started calling the bank 2 years before the ARM was up. So we've got a 5-year history now of paying on time, paying good, doing the right things. And so 2 years out from the ARM, I started calling them and asking them if we could refinance and get a fixed rate, not an interest only. And I was trying to set ourselves up for the future. The bank continually refused that my mortgage was not eligible for a refi. It was, I was given the runaround. And this happened for several months, and then I kept going, in, I'm telling you, 2 years. Until finally, I was so frustrated, I spoke to somebody and that was finally honest with me at the bank, and they probably would have got fired or in trouble if they would have known that they told me this. But they told me, they said, Mr. Crossley, unfortunately, here's what the truth is. The bank is not going to do anything until you default on your loan. When you default on your loan, then they'll spring into action. But before that, they're not going to do anything to help you try to refinance or anything. So long story short, we ended up losing our home. Now, what we ended up doing was not foreclosing, but we did do a short sale. And if you remember, and here's, I've got a point to what I'm saying here. If you remember what happened was, the country was in crisis. People were losing their homes left and right. The price of rent skyrocketed because now people were looking for rentals because they were losing their homes that they'd been paying mortgages on. I've got a friend that he had like 14 properties. He was going to lose it all. It was only through the very generous help of his father that he was able to keep it. That's the kind of stuff that was going on. But here's the thing that aggravated me, and if you had the power of deduction, you could see what happened. If I'm not mistaken, there was like a $900 billion bill passed in Congress back at that time, and the point of it was they were bailing out the banks in the sense of banks were now having so many problems with mortgages. But the idea of the bailout was not for the banks to keep the money. The idea of the bailout was for the banks to then work with people and transition them to more rational type of loans and be able to help people. That money never made it to the public. So the banks doubled down. What did they do? They got the bailouts from the government, And now they also got the houses that people couldn't pay. When I saw that happen, it infuriated me because the help that should have gone to the people never went to the people. It went to the big corporations, it went to the banks, it went to government interests, and here we are. That was the beginning, if I could say, of the domino falling of all of this government spending. We've always had government spending. The government is absolutely the worst money manager in the world. I mean, if you think you're bad, just look at the government. It is the worst money management system in the world. And so all of a sudden, from that point forward, it's like every administration wants to outspend the other. And the craziness has to stop. We can't keep doing this. Why do I say this? Well, here's what happened just yesterday. The House votes to raise the debt ceiling, and of course, the bill is being sent to Biden's desk. So here's what they're doing. They're lifting the debt ceiling. It's a big, fat joke. Listen to me now. This whole thing of the debt ceiling is a big, fat joke. Tell me one time in the last 4 presidencies where they have lowered the debt ceiling. They have not lowered the debt ceiling because they just keep spending and spending and spending, and you cannot do that. The U.S. House of Representatives just voted to lift the debt ceiling by $2.5 trillion early this morning, and of course it's going to go to Biden's desk for approval. Now, this is not a unanimous thing. Thank God for representatives that can see the chaos, but we've got a problem, and that is we don't have the House. If there's anything we need in November of 2022 is we need to take back the House and the Senate. It was very clearer than ever to me during President Trump's time in office that it is practically impossible for the president to really accomplish what he needs to accomplish if the House and the Senate are not for him. And that's the checks and balances of government. But honestly, Congress has increased their power significantly compared to what I believe was the original intent. But the House voted 221 to 209 in favor of increasing the U.S. debt ceiling. The Senate also voted right along party lines, 50 to 49. Now, that raises our debt ceiling to $31.5 trillion. And supposedly that's going to last beyond the elections in 2023. Now, I want you to understand that we are at the end of 2021. We've got the midterm elections next November 2022, and then obviously 2023. So this raising of the debt ceiling by $2.5 trillion, they're calculating, listen to me now, they're calculating it's only really going to last about a year and a few months. That's it. Raise the debt ceiling, $2.5 trillion. It's only going to last about a year and 3 months because of how crazy we spend money. Now, to put that in context, it took us 200 years to get to about a $3 trillion debt, and now $2.5 trillion increase is only going to last us about a year and a few months. Now, here's the worst problem. The reason this is a horrible problem is because the government becomes its own lender, okay? The government has become its own lender. And so we ran out of money. We'll just raise the debt ceiling and we'll print some more. What that does, and you want to know why we have inflation? That's why. That is why we have inflation. Because the dollar is devalued. The more you have of a certain commodity, the less it is worth because there's an abundant supply of it. The less you have of a commodity, the more it's worth because of demand, because of its value. The most valuable minerals in the world are valuable because of their rarity. There's not as much of a supply. And so here we are, and we continue to spend, spend, spend. I would love to see somebody run for office with the most unpopular, it would be unpopular, with the most unpopular agenda. And that would be, let's pay our debts. Let me ask you, is it popular in your house? No, it's not, right? You want to go to the mall, you want to buy more, you want to get the new car. So what do? One of my favorite commercials I've ever seen, it was hilarious. I cannot remember what company it was. I can't remember. I really do not remember if it was insurance, if it was cars, what it was. But the commercial is hilarious because this guy pulls out of this mansion of a home. He gets into this, top of the line car, and he's like, look at my house, look at my car. And I've got all this, and he's showing everything that he has. And then with his big smile on his face, he looks at you and he says, and you know how I'm doing this? I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. And I just fell out on the floor laughing because it's exactly how it is, And so we need to be very careful. I'm very worried about this. In the United States, we have always been insulated, and we have been insulated because we have been the economic world power. We always have been for our lifetime, okay? Last 100, 120, 130 years. In fact, I think I mentioned it last week, an interview with Elon Musk, and he mentioned that last 120, 130 years, the United States has been the economic powerhouse of the world. There's only really one reason that the United States has been the world superpower, and that's money. That's why it's money. Because with money, you can do R&D and build up your military. With money, you can make sure that you control other countries that could rise up against you because maybe you're their lender. Money allows you to build your strength, your defenses, your military. Money is... and let's talk about it as Christians. Money is so powerful. Money is so powerful that when Jesus said you cannot serve two masters, he wasn't maligning money. He wasn't talking about money as though you shouldn't have money, but he was saying you cannot serve two masters. And he said you cannot serve God and mammon. You will be a servant to one and not to the other. And so that's how powerful money is. Money is so powerful that God basically says, listen, this is my opposing force in the sense of power, right? Money is power. Poor countries do not have power. Rich countries have power. Money is very, very important. And so here's what has happened for the last 120, 130 years. We have been the economic powerhouse. And so we lend money. Now, unfortunately, we also are a very consumer-driven society. Here we are, Christmas time. We're very consumer-driven. Inflation is high, money is low. But go and see how people are shopping. We are consumer driven. And the entire country is consumer driven. The government is consumer driven. We're not a country that produces the way that we should produce in comparison to how we like to spend. And so here's the problem. Right now, we've been insulated, okay? We're fine right now. Very short moment of time, I think we're fine. Because who's going to push us around? We're the ones that... The dollar is the dollar. The dollar rules the world as far as the currency that dominates and is the baseline for everything else. But we are devaluating the dollar. If you want to know why your gas is $4.50 a gallon for premium, or even higher in states like California and stuff like that, the reason it's higher is because the dollar really has been devalued by inflation. So what is happening when we do this sort of thing, when we raise the debt ceiling, we are hurting ourselves. You are not allowed to do that in your life if you are maxed out. If you continually every year spent $3 trillion more than what you were making, and you went to the bank and you said, "Listen, I need you to raise my limit because I'm maxed out," they would say, "No way, Jose. We're not going to raise your limit at all because you are an irresponsible spender. You need to pay your debt down, and only then will we even consider maintaining you, let alone raise your ceiling." So the government's problem is it's its own lender. So they just continue spending money like it's water, and then they just vote to raise the debt ceiling. Who's going to pay this? Who's going to pay that debt? Who's going to pay $30+ trillion? We are hijacking, kidnapping our future. And here's the thing. Right now, we've been insulated, but we're not going to be insulated for much longer. Let me tell you that. We're not going to be insulated for much longer because we are very soon, if we don't watch it, we are very soon not going to be the economic powerhouse in this world. We're just not going to be that because China, and we're going to talk about them here in a minute, China, Elon Musk himself said we need to be ready for a China whose economic power is 2 to 3 times larger than what ours has been. Imagine the United States, the economy of the United States, and what it has been in the last 50, 60 years since World War II. And think about China's economy being 3 times that. Who's going to rule the world then? Who's going to have the military power then? Who's going to have the strength then? And at that point, then the United States enters into a subservient role because we are no longer the ones calling the shots. And let me just tell you, China is not going to call the shots the way that the United States has called the shots. And the United States has not been perfect by any means, but I'll tell you what, we better be very, very aware. And so, okay, so what is the problem? Our problem is we have become a country that focuses on so many social issues that are really non-issues. We make them issues. We throw money at it. They don't do a good job of it. The best social programs are not government programs. The best social programs are those that are managed by private companies. They manage their money better. They manage their personnel better. They have better results. And so what we need to do, if any money needs to be anywhere, it needs to be back in the private sector. Because in the private sector, we've got people that have no special interests. How is it? Have you ever wondered? I mean, it's not rocket science, right? You have a senator or a U.S. representative, right? So they are elected into office. Let's just check this out. A senator's salary established, if I'm not mistaken, by the government. Here we go. The position. You ready for this? A senator makes, this is their salary every year, $174,000. That's the salary of a senator. Now, I'm sure that there's some benefits packages, and I would imagine, like many companies establish travel expenses, all that sort of thing. But their base salary is $174,000. That's really not that much. And yet, these senators that have been in office for 30 plus years, some of them are worth 35, 40 million dollars. How can you become worth 35 to 40 million dollars with a salary of $174,000 a year? And that was just increased not too long ago. You know how? Special interests. There's a whole lot of money that changes hands and a whole lot of things that are done as special interests. And so when you have a special interest, that's why people hated Trump. They hated Trump because he had enough money on his own that he didn't have any special interest groups that he had to be beholden to. And whether you liked him or not, that was a great advantage. He didn't even take a dime as a president. I think he might have had to legally take $1 or something. I don't know. But he would give away his salary every year. Every year he would give away his salary every quarter, I think it was. And we had a president that worked for free for 4 years. He worked for free. And I can guarantee you that none of these fashionistas and these people, high top brand people, I can guarantee you they weren't letting Melania Trump borrow their dresses like they have let so many other presidents, first ladies do before. No, they bought their own wardrobe. They worked for this country for free for 4 years. They didn't have, why? Because they didn't have a special interest to oil and gas or to any or Planned Parenthood or any kind of special interest group. And so they were able to function without being pressured. In fact, you ready for this? When Trump leaves office, he's poorer than when he goes into office. The presidency cost Donald Trump millions of dollars. He left poorer than when he went in, and poor is relative. I mean, obviously he's a rich man, but he left with less money than when he went in because, number one, he worked for free. Number two, he was not beholden to any special interest. He gave of himself, and his family gave of themselves, and he had to give up even so many, obviously, so there would be no conflict of interest. He had to give up so many things of his own personal, private business life. And so, but he's the first one to ever do that. First one. Everybody else comes in and they come out, I mean, rolling in it. That's why people like Pelosi and Schumer hang on for dear life. That's why we need term limits, desperately need term limits. Because over the years, these senators and representatives become kidnapped, become linked to, and if I can put it, they have to pay their own debt of favors to special interests. That's why they're worth $35-40 million, because there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on that is way beyond the salary that a representative or a senator makes. And I say this, and I'll finish with this because it's bugging me. But these are the people that are making the financial decisions for the country. And if you think they're making, if you're thinking that they're making the best financial decisions with you in mind, you are sorely mistaken. Juanita Diaz says something very true here. The reason that the private sector is much better with social issues is because they're close to the people. They're close to the people. I know my congregation. They know their neighbors and their friends. So we were doing, for quite a while here, every week, we'd pick up a truckload of food that was being donated. And we had a system to distribute it to people that were needy. Those same people try and go get some help through government social programs, and it's so much bureaucracy and red tape, and then you have people that don't need it getting it, and people that need it not getting it. So it's a mess. And this is, and they just keep spending and spending. I really do wish, I'm not just saying it, I wish somebody would run on a platform of, hey, my number one objective is to pay down the debt. It would not be popular at all, because nobody likes to pay their bills, but it's the only way to free the country. Let me just say to you, you need to, if you speak Spanish at all, and you need to go see a podcast or I think it might be a video blog that is done by tremendous man, and he's talking about the Great Reset, and he said, it's Cesar Vidal is who it is, and he said that the next domino to fall, the next crisis the United States is going to be facing is going to be economic, and that is the biggest thing we're facing. If you think the biggest issue we're facing is CRT, and I'm totally against CRT, if you think the biggest issues we're facing is all of the trans problems and the LGBTQ plus agenda and all of that, those are all social issues. But that's not what's going to bring the country down. What's going to bring the country down is we are managing money in the absolute worst way possible. The government, and I'll tell you, there is an agenda behind it, okay? There is an agenda behind it. The reason that things are being socialized, or the reason money is shifting the way that it is because it's the only way to bring the United States to its knees. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about the middle class. When you make it impossible for the middle class to live, then you create what socialism has, and that is a group of elites that run everything, that have all the money, that make all the rules, and then you have a class of poor people that has to depend on the government for everything they have. They stand in line begging. You know, wake up, people. Okay? Wake up. Listen to what I'm saying. When you go into a store and they are now telling you you can only buy one of this thing, when in your lifetime, now I'm not going to speak for the Great Depression, and I'm definitely not going to speak for that great generation in World War I. I'm not going to talk because I don't know what they faced. I do know they faced it as a country united, and the context of the economic situations they faced were very different than the context of the economic situation we are facing. But when you start going into a store here in America, and the store says only one, we have a daughter church over in Fort Myers, and I was talking to the pastor of that daughter church yesterday, and he said, "Pastor, this stuff is getting crazy." I said, "What's getting crazy?" He said, "We buy these boxes of toilet paper for our church to be able to supply the bathrooms with toilet paper." And he said, "We normally buy a couple boxes, 2 or 3 boxes, to make sure that we're good for the month and have a little bit just in case there's special events, or we don't want to be caught without any toilet paper, being a place where people congregate." And he said, "We went, but they will only let us buy 1 box." And what the whole supply chain shortage stuff, all of that works hand in hand, and I am a little bit sometimes of thinking beyond what you can see in the headlines, and thinking a little bit beyond that. All of that is conditioning. Before, you never would have had to think, well, I might only be able to buy 1. But now you're being conditioned. You're being conditioned to where you might I don't know if they'll have it. I might only be able to buy 1, or it might be even not available. And so what that is that's how communist or socialistic countries end up, to where You are told what you can and can't buy. You are told how much you can buy or how much you can't buy. And so when we see that in a minimal sense here in the United States, it's just conditioning. It's just getting you ready. And if we don't fix the economic problem, we are really going to have have something that's going to destroy the country. So it's more serious than you think. You can't just keep raising the debt ceiling. And smart people know this. Smart people know this. Elon Musk said it. He said, don't spend one more dime. Don't pass one more bill. We can't keep spending. It's ridiculous. Larry Kudlow said, we can't keep spending. You can't keep spending the money. And so we are up against it, folks. And I'll be right back. I'm going to take just a quick break here, and we're going to come back here to the Ryan Crossley Show and talk about a few other things in the little bit of time that we have left. So stick with me, and we're going to be right back. All right, here we are back on the Ryan Crossley Show. Thank you for letting me take just a second there to break and kind of break thought and get into something different for the last bit of our show. But I do want to ask you, keep sharing this show. It's something that's taken off a few months ago. We do a Spanish political show on Conservative Talk Show Tuesday mornings from 7 to 9. But we are really wanting to grow the audience on this show, and we believe that we can. I do want to say something. We are going to be very soon making a connection with American Freedom Tour. I don't know if we can throw that up on the screen, but American Freedom Tour. We have had a really exciting thing that has happened, and that is we have connected with the organizers and also with the powers that be that are doing a American Freedom Tour. And the American Freedom Tour, obviously, is we are trying to promote conservatism, conservative values, the things that we believe in and we think that are good for our country and for our lives. And so we'll try and find it here, but we're going to, there you go. It's the American Freedom Tour. It's coming to Fort Lauderdale. Right there you can see it's going to be in Jacksonville. But February 19th, it's going to be in Fort Lauderdale, and we have been able to connect with the organizers of the event. Very soon, we're going to be having a website that you can go to. If you want to go to the event, you can go through the website that we will give you and get some tickets. It's going to be exciting. Donald Trump Jr. is going to be there. Kayleigh McEnany, Dan Bongino, Dinesh D'Souza, Lieutenant Colonel Waldo Waldman, and Sheriff David Clark. I love Sheriff David Clark, man. I wish he was my sheriff right here. He's tough. But if you can go to American Freedom Tour, and you'll see what it's all about. Coming to Fort Lauderdale, February 19th. But if you go to their website, you'll be able to see the different cities that they're going to be in. And we need this, folks. We need this all the way up to November elections and beyond. Look at that. I mean, it's going to be exciting. So we're going to be connecting you to this. We are hoping that even Radio La Roca will be able to have maybe a press pass or something to be able to be in amongst these great people and maybe talk to a few of them, interview them. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. We're in the process of setting that up, and it should be up in the next couple days. When it is, we will make sure that you can see it and be connected. You can get a ticket if you want to go. If you've never seen these people live, it's you need to go. It's exciting. So with that, I want to spend the last 15 minutes on something that I very rarely talk about, but I think it's coming to a head. And I hope, sometimes as a Christian, we believe there's this concept, right? There's this concept that we believe in the Bible that all things that are hidden, all things that try and hide in the dark, they eventually are going to come out. It's exposed, in Spanish, we say, todo lo oculto vendrá a la luz. All those things that are hidden are going to come to light. And so, as you know, since January 6th, the left has done everything possible to paint the January 6th events. I'm not going to call them what they call them because I don't really believe it was that. And I believe that it's been proven that there was a lot of people that were not conservatives at all that participated in antagonizing and moving a lot of that forward. But you ought to, for your own sake, you ought to go look and research how many people they have arrested. It is one of the greatest policing efforts of the government. They have literally taken January 6th and through the powers that be, FBI, CIA, different services that the country enjoys, pinged phones of people to find out where they were on January 6th and arrested them because of it. If they were deemed to have breached the Capitol. Not too long ago, I was reading the story of the one woman that was killed. You need to go and read that and see what really happened. I mean, we are on the flip side of it. See, the hypocrisy is so blatant. I don't know what scared you more. And this is an opinion, okay? I will tell you right now, this is an opinion. But do you remember all the rioters and protesters that were at the White House? The Secret Service had put up they had to, for safety, they put up a temporary fence. I mean, bottles being thrown, bricks. It was absolutely ridiculous. I remember watching in awe as the people literally were pushing the fences back and forth, the level of insults. I can tell you this, there was in me, there was a true fear that these people are insane and they want to cause damage and harm. And they did. Burning the church up. I mean, how much further do you have to go? They were anything that was sacred, anything that was nice and good, anything, tear it down, burn it up. Let's graffiti all over things that are very, valuable in our country. That was the attitude, right? That was the last summer, the summer where that destroyed so many cities, burning police precincts. That to me was insurrectionist, okay? That to me was insurrectionist. When you are wanting this, if that fence wouldn't have been there, the White House, who knows what would have happened? But it was pretty ugly. I am not by any means excusing the people that breached the Capitol and went into the building. That's just a boneheaded move. Stupid. You should never do something like that. But I do remember watching the videos, and I'm going to clarify. This is just my opinion. I do remember watching the videos, the live of what was happening, and the people were not. They weren't trying to burn down the Capitol. They weren't. They're not right breaching the Capitol. They weren't right going in there. But they were walking through. Of course, they were protesting, expressing themselves, and it is just wrong because it puts, it compromises everything. I'm sure that the people that were in the Capitol were fearful because you don't know what somebody's going to do. But in the analysis of it all, comparing the level of violence, let's go to that. Comparing all of that, it's been amazing to me. Here's what's been amazing to me, and I'm just trying to make a comparison. I'm not justifying. Please, I'm being clear. I'm not justifying. But go and study it. There's a whole lot of fishy stuff that happened around the Capitol thing that had nothing to do with the people that went in, actually. The requests for help that were absolutely denied, the requests for the National Guard that was denied ahead of time by Nancy Pelosi. She knew. The interesting way that a lot of them were just let into the building. And I'm not going to conspire any more in my thinking, but I'm just going to say, go study it. It's very, very fishy. But the contrast to me is this. The contrast is all of these people that were literally bent on burning down cities and killing anybody that didn't agree with them and tearing down any monument or statue that offended them, regardless of what it means in actual history. You're not changing history. And in fact, you're doing yourself a disservice because by removing it, you're causing people to not remember those times that we don't want to repeat. Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean, you don't tear down a monument because it offends you. You look at that monument and you let it remind you, we'll never do that again. We'll never go there again. You tear it down, you have kind of become what that monument is in a sense. Those people are long gone. Those situations are long past. But the amount of people that have been arrested because of the January 6th thing is in the very high hundreds that have been arrested and prosecuted, and it's kind of hush-hush. It's not really being talked about much. The people that were arrested during protests and riots, they spent, the ones that were arrested, basically an overnight stay in jail, and they were gone. To the point where I think it was President Trump that had to threaten and say, hey, you tear down a monument, you're spending 10 years in jail. But now all of this with the Mark Meadows situation, the hearings on him with the January 6th commission, here's something that's happening. And I'm not privy to all the details, and I will be very honest that I have not dug deep down into all of it. But the whole thing, what was the narrative, okay? The entire narrative that the left has presented is that the January 6th storming the Capitol, people breaching the Capitol and going in, that was pre-planned, that because Trump had said previously something big's going to happen, and so they ran with that to say, well, it was all a big pre-planned attack. That it was a pre-planned idea, and so I'm going to just read you something here. It's actually from Newsmax.com, which is, you can go there, and Democrats and anti-Trump Representative Liz Cheney, who she's a Republican, by the way. Please, Wyoming, get your act together and vote her out. They used Donald Trump Jr.'s text message to try and smear former President Donald Trump and Mark Meadows. But here's what they say in the article. All she did was make their case that they had no desire for protesters to storm the Capitol on January 6th, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told Newsmax. So basically what the narrative has been on the left is that that's what Trump wanted. He wanted them to storm the Capitol and basically kind of like a coup, which was not at all what they wanted. Meadows said they've been making the argument that this was a pre-planned idea that we had, and not only have I said publicly that no one in the West Wing had any advanced knowledge that any breach of security at the Capitol was going to happen, and certainly this message from Don Jr. says the same thing. We were all shocked and horrified by what happened. We were surprised by what happened. And candidly, you know, when you look at the people that are there, they need to be held accountable. But yet at the same time, it was not a plan by Donald Trump or anybody in his administration. The January 6th Select Committee's narrative, Republicans sought an insurrection, is shot down by Liz Cheney's own evidence, Meadows added. It's how the left wants to portray it, as if somehow conservatives condone that, he said. But here's what we don't condone. We don't condone a congressional committee using someone who is honoring the executive privilege of the president that I had the honor of serving, and then going out trying to use the very same information that was non-privileged to spin a story that would suggest that Donald Trump has something to hide or that Mark Meadows has something to hide. Neither of us have anything to hide. That's why we participated, but obviously they're not about a real investigation. They're about advancing a political narrative. Basically, if I understand right, the tweet that he's talking about is Donald Trump Jr. tweeting his father, and it's basically saying, hey, these people we need to stop this. We need to get people out of here. We need to get that stopped. I'm not going to read the exact quote, but you can go look it up. And so instead of them taking that and saying, hey, they didn't have an idea about this and they were upset when they saw it too. No, they're taking that communication and saying, see, it was pre-planned. They had it all. They were in cahoots. And so it's being spun in such a way to where it's like the left has this fixation. I don't know if you think about to me, it seems like the left has a fixation on Donald Trump. They can't get past the fact that he was elected. They can't get past the fact that he was a great president and that he did a great job. Doesn't mean that you have to like his tweets. But I'd sure, like somebody said the other day, I'd much rather deal with a mean tweet right now and $1.89 gas than an absentee president and $4.50 gas. So it's pretty wild what's going on, and we just you need to pay attention, because if they do what they want to do with the January 6th commission, I mean, it was almost an obsessive fixation that they have on all this stuff. From day one that he was in office, it was a constant barrage of attacks, and it is really a mess. Sean Hannity himself addressed what he called Liz Cheney's weak attempt to smear him after the Republican lawmaker publicized a text message showing the Fox News host encouraging former President Trump to take stronger action to quell the Capitol riot on January 6th. This is what Hannity said last night. In a weak attempt to smear yours truly and presumably President Trump, Congresswoman Cheney presented one of my text messages from January 6th to Mark Meadows. Hannity told viewers in his monologue on Tuesday, I said to Mark Meadows the exact same thing I was saying live on the radio at the time and on TV that night on January 6th and well beyond January 6th. I'm honest, straightforward person. I say the same thing in private that I say to all of you. So here's what they're trying to do. Because they were communicating, saying, hey, we need to try and stop this, Instead of them saying, hey, that was an attempt of them to try and quell what was going on, they're saying, oh, look, they had a pre-planned idea. That's not at all what they're saying. They're trying to spin it and be absolutely dishonest about what was actually happening. And in fact, they were relatively quick, in my opinion, coming out against what was going on. So don't be fooled, is what I'm trying to say. Don't be fooled. They are still trying to spin the narrative. You ought to be worried when people can burn up buildings, police precincts, kill people, tear down monuments, destroy businesses, ruin people's lives, and not be prosecuted at all. And then those that were at the Capitol, some that didn't even go in, are being called insurrectionists. And if you go look at it, I mean, nothing was burnt up, nothing was broken. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying it's hypocrisy at a high level. And we need to understand where it's coming from. So, well, time flies when you're having fun. And I thank you one more time for being with me on the Ryan Crossley Show. And I hope you take time to look at various news sources. That's very important. Don't just take it all. I have probably 9 or 10 different news sources that I continually go to try and get a balanced view. And if the Ryan Crossley Show helps you in any way, I hope it does. Be paying attention to what's going on. Be careful out there. Have a Merry Christmas. Don't spend more than the government spends. God bless you. God bless America. We'll see you next Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Praying for you. Hope everything goes well for you today.